welcome back to my channel. It's Jessica from The Social Speechy. If this is your first time watching any of my videos, welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. I have not filmed a sit-down video in quite some time because I've been so busy with grad school and my new job as a speech-language pathology assistant, but I've been getting so many questions and emails and comments about this topic, so I figured that I would sit down and just film like a really quick 7-tip video. So this video is going to be 7 tips for success on the GRE. I honestly think that taking the GRE was the worst part about applying for grad schools. I am not a super stellar standardized test taker. Like, I get so nervous, like I start sweating, my heart is beating fast, and it is just not a good situation. But I took the GRE, gosh, I think I took it 3 times total. One of the times did not count toward my graduate application because my score was older than 5 years old. So a little bit of backstory on me. I actually applied to get my Master's of Art in Teaching in 2012 when I graduated with my first bachelor's degree. I got accepted into the program, but I didn't end up following through because I figured out that teaching wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Anyway, long story short, those scores were over 5 years old, so they were invalid basically. So I ended up taking it again, and then I really wanted to get my score up a little bit more, so then I took it a 3rd time. So I guess really I've taken it twice to apply for SLP programs. But I wanted to share with you guys 7 tips that really helped get my score up from the first time to the 2nd time. In case you are wondering, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. My GRE scores were very average. Like, there was nothing like crazy, like nothing to write home about, but I was able to pull my verbal score up 5 points, which is a lot on the GRE, over the course of 3 months with these study tips. So let's go ahead and jump into these 7 tips. Tip number 1, it seems really obvious and it's a lot easier said than done. Do not cram. Give yourself time to study. The GRE is not something that you study for a week and then take it and you're done. Like, no, it does not work that way. So what I did, I gave myself an entire summer. I knew that I had classes starting in August, so I wanted to have the GRE completed by the time I started classes, so that way I wasn't having to juggle studying for the GRE and keeping up with my classes as well. So I made myself a 3-month study schedule where I was studying a little bit every single day. Tip number 2, this is a big one. I think this is the one that helped me the most. Try to use an online study program rather than a book. I mean, obviously you could still use the books, but really do a lot of your studying on the computer because you're taking the test on the computer. So you want to get used to reading the problems off of a computer, figuring out the problems on a computer, reading passages on a computer. You want to be used to seeing the test on a computer because your test is going to be on a computer. My first time that I took the GRE, I studied from an ETS book, which it was super helpful, but I didn't do anything on the computer. So then by the time that my test rolled around and I sat down at the computer, I was just so uncomfortable and I felt like a lot of my energy was spent acclimating myself to the test being on the computer, which I knew that it was going to be on the computer, but I just didn't prepare well for that. So the program that I used, and it helped me so much, you guys, it's called Magoosh, and I'll link it in the description box below. It's Magoosh, I think is how you spell it. But there are videos for every single problem. They have the transcript for the videos, so if you're not good at watching but you would rather read how they came to an answer, you could read it. And there's so many practice questions, and there's even whole practice tests on there. That program helped me immensely, and I would recommend it to anyone who wants to take the GRE. Tip number 3, this is something that I did not do right the first time around, but then I corrected it the 2nd time around, and it made a big difference in my verbal score. So the tip is study vocabulary words rather than roots. I totally thought that the right strategy was to study roots because that's what, you know, I don't know, it makes sense. I'm like, yeah, like let's study roots because then I won't have to study as many words and I can figure out what the words mean because I know the roots. Well, I was reading a lot of blog posts and a lot of like books about the GRE, and they trap people who do that. I guess a lot of the words on the GRE are meant to trip you up in that sense. So basically, like the words on the GRE, like the roots, like if you have a root memorized, like the word that it's used with on the GRE, it isn't like the typical definition of that root. So I chose to study whole words rather than roots, and it helped so much when I was taking the GRE. I found so many lists on, I think Magoosh has one, I think ETS has one, there's blog posts all over the place that have them, and they are just lists of the most common GRE words. So I was just taking those and I was learning like probably, I would say, 5 to 7 words a day. I would make flashcards and just all day, that day, like memorize those 5 to 7 words and then tack them on to the ones that I learned the day before and the day before and the day before. And before I knew it, like I had memorized so many words and it helped me so much. Tip number 4, I kind of already touched on this a little bit, but write out a study schedule and commit to it. So I treated my study time like an appointment. I didn't blow it off. Like even if I could only study for 30 minutes that day, like I would make it a priority to sit down for that 30 minutes and get all distractions out of the way. So no phone, like no TV and none of that. It was just me and the GRE. So I would highly, highly recommend setting aside at least 30 minutes a day to study, but I typically set aside 1 to 2 hours a day to study for the 3-month time period that I was preparing for the GRE. Tip number 5, before you start studying, take a practice test to see where you stand. When I took it the first time, I didn't do this and I kind of just jumped into studying and I was just studying like anything and everything, and I was so overwhelmed because it was just like an overload of information and I wanted to cry. I think I did cry. I know I did cry. But seriously, start off by taking most programs that you like use or buy or whatever on the computer come with 2 full practice exams. Take one before you start studying so you kind of can like give yourself a baseline of where you're at, and that can really help like narrow in your studying, and you're gonna make your time a lot more useful because you're gonna be putting your effort where you need it the most. Tip number 6 is take a practice test a week before your scheduled test. So this is another thing that I did not do the first time, but I did it the second time around, and I feel like it really helped me because during that last week of studying, I was able to really hone in on what I needed to hone in on because I took the test at the beginning, like before I started studying. I knew where I needed to put a lot of my effort and energy. I spent the next like 2 or 3 months like studying that stuff. And then again, a week before my actual test, I took another practice test at home just to kind of see one more time, okay, you have 1 more week to really hone in on this stuff. Where should I be putting all of my energy? So definitely take a test at least a week out, and it kind of just gets you ready for your big day. So you know like how long to expect to be sitting in the chair. It just kind of gets your eyes used to staring at the screen for like the increments of time that it needs to. It's just a good idea to take a full-length test a week before your actual test. Okay, and then my last tip number 7, on the ETS website, which the ETS is the organization who like gives the GRE, they have a pool of writing prompts. I know a lot of people kind of like blow off the writing section, but a couple of girls who I was an undergrad with, like the writing section is what really tanked their score because they didn't spend time preparing for it. On the ETS website, I will link it down in the description box below if I remember. Jessica, when you're editing this, remember to link that below. But they have, like I said, a whole pool of actual prompts that they use on the GRE. So there are tons of different ones that you can read through. And yeah, well, the chances of you getting one that you actually read and prepared for are very slim. At least you can kind of get an idea and gauge what kind of prompts to expect. So those are my 7 tips for preparing for the GRE. Like I said, doing these 7 things really helped get my score up, And I was able to get into grad school. It's so crazy because this time last year I was applying to grad school, and now here I am almost done with my first semester, and I have goosebumps, and it's just so awesome. If you put in the work, it's going to pay off. I know the GRE is tough. I know that it's daunting and that it gives people anxiety, but just put your head down, do the work, stick with it, and get it done, and I promise you will come out on the other side. I also have quite a few tips for the day of your test, so if you guys would like to see another video with tips of my GRE test day experience, then feel free to leave a comment below and I will totally get that up for you guys. If you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.